It is very confusing and overwhelming to first go through UN jobs and try to understand what they're all about. One of the mysteries is around the UN grades. Whenever you see letters such as P3, NO3, IPSA 10, you might be wondering, what is this? In this video, we're going to talk about all the different UN grades, how you can classify them, what kind of benefits you can get out of each of them, and what could be the best match for you. My name is Wiola, and I started IOReady, International Organizations Ready, to share knowledge, tips, and insider insights about working in international organizations as someone who worked at the EU, UN, and the OECD. This video is a part of our series on how to get a job at the UN. In the previous one, we have covered how to get a job at the UN, 7 practical steps, and contract types. In today's video, we are diving deep into UN grades. If you want to work at the UN, it might be pretty useful for you. Let's start with the basics. The grading system has been created at the UN and all of its agencies as a system of categorizing different positions and indicating the responsibilities and potential benefits. The grading system, while it might slightly differ across the different UN agencies, is applied to all United Nations. So whatever agency or mission you want to work on, this video will be useful for you. Why are UN grades important? Together with contract types, the UN grades determine your responsibilities, your benefits, and your salary. This means that a UN grade will not only determine your current position, but also your future career opportunities and how you can transition from one into another. What are the benefits? There are 2 types of benefits. One is related to your salary, and then the other one is related to all of the other benefits. In terms of your salary, a UN grade will determine how much money you are making, but also whether or not you are paying the tax. Other benefits include elements such as diplomatic immunity, travel allowance, hardship allowance, pension, health insurance, relocation grant, education allowance, cost of living adjustment, and more. If you would like me to make a separate video about the benefits of working at the UN with a permanent contract, then I would be more than happy to do so. Let me know in the comments down below. UN grades and UN contract types are different things. However, they work together to determine your responsibilities, your benefits, and how your whole experience at the United Nations is, which is very important to be able to understand both of these sides to the contractual element. If you want to know more about contract types at the United Nations, I made a video about it right here, and you can click on it right after watching this video. So what are these potential UN grades? Let's categorize the grades. There are P grades, that is professional grades, D grades, director grades, G grades, general service grades, FS, field service grades, and O, national official grades, and also different consulting grades. So we're going to cover a couple of them, but it is absolutely impossible for me to cover all of them. So if you have any specific questions, do leave them in the comments down below. Let's start from the P positions. There are positions from P1 to P5, and these are professional posts that require you to have advanced education, so minimum master's degree, although sometimes you can have a bachelor's degree with some extra years of experience to cover that gap, and some prior experience. The P1 and P2 positions are supposed to be entry-level positions, but in reality, no one is getting a job on a P1 or P2 level without any experience in the field. So I want to mention that ahead of the time because I get a lot of questions in regards to the P1 and P2 positions. People thinking that after their master's degree with 2 years of experience, they are able to get to a P2 post. This is extremely rare because the actual people who apply for these positions are extremely overqualified. And as I have mentioned in some of the videos before, the competitiveness is very, very, very high at the United Nations. So these roles very often go to candidates who have 5, 6, sometimes even 7 years of experience. The key thing to remember with P positions is that you need to have relevant work experience. So it's not only about the years of experience that you have. Let's say I have myself worked for 5 years as a nanny, and then I have 4 years of other experiences in international organizations. I wouldn't be able to apply for a position that requires 7 years of relevant professional experience. Then we have director level positions, so the D1s and the D2s, which are senior roles that require extensive experience of minimum 10, 15 years in a leadership position. So these are the leadership roles within the system. On the D positions, you're not only going to be a director of a particular team or work stream. You're also going to be managing people, and you're also going to be giving the strategic vision for that particular theme and director that you're working on, which is why having leadership experience is extremely important at this step. The field office grade requires you to work in the field very often in difficult circumstances and sometimes hard duty stations, and they require you to be hands on, to be very resilient and adaptable. The general service grades require you to have less specialized education. So, for some of the positions, you are only required to have a high school degree and some years of professional experience, but these are crucial roles to make the UN work. The GS roles are support roles, so everything that comes with supporting the professional and director staff and the whole system. So that's dealing with administration, sometimes with organizing events, and depending on the UN agency, satisfying specific needs for those field missions. And then we have a lot of consultancy grades. I'm going to give you some of the examples so that you can get an idea of how they look like. But each UN agency have their own consulting systems. If you have ever worked at the United Nations, then you know that there is two different types of consultants. You can have internal consultancies and external consultancies. You can have international consultancies and national consultancies. This is regarding the contract type. And again, I'll refer you back to the previous video that I have made in this series to make you completely understand the whole system. But as a consultant, you can also have different grades. So, depending on what's required for a particular project or for the particular team, you may be required to have 10 years of experience or 15 years of experience, especially if it's for a specialized post. But sometimes you may be a junior consultant requiring to have 0 years of experience. And again, this is regulated internally, and you can see those grades within some of these contract types as you look through the job description. So, for example, again, this one is the most complicated one from all of the different grades because of how differently they're called in each agency, which is why I wanted to show you that, for example, at UNDP, you can have the IPSA or NPSA consultancies. So that stands for International Personal Service Agreement or National Personal Service Agreement, but this is not the only consultancy type within UNDP. So it's really important to again understand that there is a lot of things that are confusing and dysregulated. So at least knowing this basis is really important for you if you want to enter the UN. However, for example, we have UN Ops that has a completely different system, which is LISA or ISA. Of course, you also have some specific grades. For example, if you go to the UNV website, which is the United Nations Volunteers, you will see that there is many different contract types. And very often at UNV, the contract type determines how many years of experience and therefore what kind of grade you have. You can be an international volunteer specialist or national specialist with specific qualifications. Overall, understanding UN grades is going to allow you not only what your benefits are going to be, but also how you can prepare yourself to enter this specific post. Because again, if you aspire to be a professional within the United Nations, then you might realize that something that you're missing from your CV and from your profile is, let's say, a master's degree or additional 5 years of experience to be able to even apply for a P3 position. Let's get to some of the most asked questions from our Are You Ready community. Question number 1. How many years of experience do I need to get to a P or D grade position? I want to preface it by saying that there are two different scales that you need to pay attention to. One of them is the official one, which is the minimum years of experience that are required. But in practice, these years of experience are very often more than what's the actual minimum because of the high competitiveness of the process. So let's say that you have 0 years of experience and you're applying for a P1 position against a person who has 5 years of experience is more likely to get the opportunity than you. So I want you to bear that in mind while we go through those minimum requirements. For a P1 position, apparently there is no experience required. I have never seen anyone who got a P1 position with zero experience, so bear that in mind. But P1 positions are supposedly entry level positions. Then we have P2 positions where you need to have minimum 2 years of work experience, P3 positions, minimum 5 years of work experience, P4 positions, minimum 7 years of work experience, P5, minimum of 10 years of work experience. Now, when we move to the director level, we have D1, minimum 15 years of work experience, and D2, minimum of 15 years of experience. These minimum requirements are actually pretty standard across all of the UN agencies, so it's a very good indication to see where you are in this whole process and which position you could potentially be applying for. Question number 2. Is it hard to get a permanent P position? Yes, it is extremely hard for two reasons. One, I have been covering from the beginning of the series, which is that the competitiveness for these jobs is extremely high. So actually a possibility of even landing a job interview is very, 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 very hard. However, there's point number 2, which is that there is actually not a lot of permanent positions available anymore, and the UN agencies are moving away from offering these opportunities way less than 10 or 15 years ago. There is a couple of reasons of that, and whenever I speak to recruiters from the UN, they always put it out there. It is extremely expensive for the UN to hire permanent staff. It's not only because of the salary, but also because of the fact that there is no tax that the employers needs to pay, but also all of the benefits, including children allowances, educational allowances, the travel allowances, hardship allowances. There is a lot of extra benefits that are offered to internationally recruited P positions that are very heavy for the organization, but also permanent contract very often means that it's a permanent contract for that level and for that position, meaning that it's becoming extremely difficult to actually get rid of that person. And I have mentioned before in the past in one of my videos the permanent contract trap, where very often people who receive this type of contract actually stop making as much effort as they used to before, and very often they don't perform their task to what is required of them. And I think international organizations are realizing that it's extremely difficult to get rid of people who aren't performing very well because of the immunity that the organizations have gifted themselves. Now, my personal opinion is that the permanent positions are extremely beneficial in terms of job security in a very insecure job market that is the international organizations sector. But I can also see from the point of recruiter that this is trying to address some of the gaps and some of the issues that the UN has been experiences across the years. Question number 3. What salary can you make at a P3 position at the UN? This is a really great question, and I don't have a straightforward response, and I'll explain you exactly why. Firstly, your P3 salary will depend on the type of contract because you can be on a P3 grade, but on a temporary assignment, not on a permanent one, or even on a consultancy. In the last video, we saw that there is a P3 level position for an international consultancy, which means that your salary will be determined by the type of contract that's won. Secondly, it's going to be determined by your location. So whether you're in New York or Geneva or Nairobi, your possibilities in terms of your salary are going to be different. And it's similar with the agencies. Whether you're at UNDP or UN Ops, your salaries are going to vary. However, For the official contracts, there is actually an official salary scale system with different salary steps. So you can actually verify this information publicly with brackets of minimum and maximum of what you can make at a P3 position in a specific country. So, for example, this is information that is publicly available, and I have checked that as of February 2025, to be at a P3 position in the United States, you would be making between $77,884, and this is an annual salary, on step one, to step eight at $102.90 yearly. At the same time, if I look at UNDP in Geneva, and you can actually calculate this with the website that I'm going to link down below if you're interested in that, you can pick the type of contract, you can pick the UN grade, you can pick a lot of different elements, and that's going to give you an indication of what a salary could be. In Geneva, P3 position on step one starts at $105,317 to step eight at $123,079. So there is some of the differences between the cities and between the different organizations, which we can verify. And I was actually wondering if you would be interested in me making a whole video about salary scale and analyzing how much money you can make at the UN, whether you are having a permanent contract or whether you're working as a consultant or if you're working as a national staff. I would love to be able to share some more information about the UN system with you because, again, these are the things that I wish I knew 10 years ago when I was starting because no one could explain it to me. And this whole system is just way too complicated across the different organizations and across the different UN agencies, which is exactly why I'm making all this time and effort to deliver this information for you for free. So if you have stayed up until now, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment in the video down below. I produce this content for you to be able to get your dream career of impact in the United Nations. So if you have benefited from this video, if you have learned something new, please support our small channel and our small iReady team. The next video in this series of how to get a job at the UN is going to be about key challenges about entering the UN. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye!